I'll call to order the Planning Commission meeting for this evening. It's 6:03 p.m. All right. After that, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Nugent.
Here.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Here.
Commissioner Barnett.
Here.
Chair Dambach.
Here.
Thank you. I would like to point out that Vice Chair WIRICK, Commissioner O'Gorman Jenkins, Commissioner Willers, and Youth Member Pedersen are all absent from this evening's meeting.
You didn't.
You can move down here to
Yeah, come join us.
we'll gather together here.
I took a shower and everything. Now we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Do I hear any changes from the commission on the agenda tonight? If not, a motion to approve, please.
Move to approve.
Second, thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Nugent.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Yes.
Commissioner Barnett.
Aye.
Chair Dambach.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
All right, and now we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Anne, would you start us off? Thank you. All right, thank you. Now we'll move on to comments from the public. So if there is anyone from the public who has a comment, please come up and state your name for the record. Thank you.
Do you want to start the little clock? I have timed it. It should work. But
Yeah, I mean, we're so packed in here that I think you...
okay. I'll try to not to talk too fast then, since I have plenty of time. Okay, good evening. My name is Janet Boyle, and I'm a resident of Sonoma. I'd like to raise two concerns regarding the proposed land use changes to the 5 parcels commonly referred to as the Sebastiani property. First, according to the city's parcel map, Sonoma has only 6 parcels currently designated as agriculture. The proposed changes would eliminate 2 of them, which represents a 33% reduction in the city's agricultural lands. A third. At the same time, the general plan's conservation and open space element includes as one of its 8 stated goals, in quote, promote and conserve agricultural resources. Reducing agricultural parcels by 1/3 appears inconsistent with that goal. I therefore recommend that the city retain the agricultural designation for these 2 parcels rather than reclassifying them as Sonoma mixed use, a category that allows up to 25 housing units per acre. Such a change could replace existing green space along the bike path with high-density residential development, substantially altering current land use patterns. It is worth noting that a petition supporting a more balanced and responsible land use has already gathered 748 signatures from residents despite minimal outreach. Second, for the remaining 3 parcels, I recommend consideration of low-density residential zoning consistent with the existing neighborhood. This approach would still provide additional housing while minimizing strain on local infrastructure. Based on preliminary estimates, higher density zoning could add approximately 500 additional vehicles to the intersection of East Spain and East 4th Street. In summary, the data suggests that maintaining agricultural zoning where possible and applying low-density residential standards elsewhere would better align with the stated goals of the general plan and help mitigate infrastructure and safety concerns. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Bonnie Joy Costlon, 251 Del Rio Paseo, Sonoma. Esteemed members of the Sonoma Planning Commission, good evening. I am Bonnie Joy Costlon, President of the HOA of Moon Valley Community and a seasoned member of the Tri-Park Committee. As a reminder, the 3 parks affected by Sonoma's rent stabilization ordinance and Sonoma's conversion closure ordinance are Pueblo Serena, 127 homes of seniors only. Moon Valley, converted to all age in 2009, consisting of 250 homes and approximately 700 residents. And Sonoma Oaks, a hybrid park of 50 market rate rentals not under rent control and 50 owner-occupied homes under the Sonoma Rent Stabilization Ordinance. We are working with the Sonoma Valley Golden State Mobile Home Owners League, Sonoma County Mobile Home Owners Association, and the Sonoma Valley Collaborative to update the current 2004 Mobile Home Closure and Conversion Ordinance, which is already a part of our housing element. To that end, we, the Tri-Park Committee, have engaged the expertise and services of Attorney Will Constantine, author of our current Sonoma Rent Stabilization Ordinance, and original developer of the legislative concept of AB 2782. AB 2782 expands the power of local jurisdictions to adopt and allow more protections for homeowners than what is provided in Sonoma's 20-year-old current conversion and closure ordinance. Mr. Constantine's proposed draft was first submitted to Director Gates on August 11th, 2025 for review and consideration. Several key points of the memo are why the proposed ordinance is needed now, summary of how the proposed ordinance protects affordable housing and adequately compensates homeowners, and a detailed discussion on selected critical issues covered in the proposed ordinance and its provision for addressing them. We thank you for your time and interest and look forward to a scheduled meeting to discuss this much-needed update to one of our ordinances that is designed to protect affordable housing and the homeowners of manufactured housing communities under the jurisdiction and protection of the City of Sonoma. Thank you.
Thank you, Banajoy.
Hello, Ann Colachitas. Last time that we were here, we had 20 people with us in support of our initiative. And anyway, my name is Ann Colachitas, and I serve as president of Sonoma Valley GSMOL, Golden State Manufactured Homeowners League. We're a 65-year volunteer organization that helps shape the mobile home residency law, which governs the relationship between park owners and mobile homeowners in the state of California. I'm here tonight to ask you to act on Sonoma's most recent housing element in Program 11, which calls for updating the Civil Code to reflect new protections for mobile homeowners made possible by AB 2782. And I understand we've had some progress today, so I look forward to hearing more about that. In 2020, I worked directly on AB 2782. Even during the height of the pandemic, lawmakers recognized the urgent need to strengthen protections against park closures and conversions. But they also made something very clear: the strongest safeguards must come from local governments tailored to local needs. Sonoma's ordinance hasn't been updated since 2004, before the housing crash, before the affordability crisis we now live with. At that time, parks were mostly owned by the original mom and pop operators. Today, more and more are being purchased by speculative investors and private equity firms focused on extraction rather than affordable housing. We've already seen the harm that this can cause right here in Sonoma County, and I run a regional meeting once a month, a luncheon of mobile homeowners from around the county, so I hear this all firsthand. We've seen the harm this can cause right here in Sonoma County. Harmony Communities has created chaos in Petaluma, Santa Rosa, Cotati, and now Windsor. Residents there are facing exorbitant rent hikes, closure threats, legal intimidation, and outrageous claims for legal fees. Homeowners at Little Woods Mobile Home Park are currently engaged in the park closure process. Petaluma has been playing catch-up and managing to hold the line. Their city attorney, Eric Danley, doing a fantastic job, confessed at a recent meeting, "I go to bed thinking about this, and I wake up thinking about it." Here in Sonoma, we don't have to be caught unprepared. It could happen here anytime, and that's why we urge you to expedite the update of Sonoma's ordinance to include the protections AB 2782 allows. It's a smart, timely step to protect hundreds of residents, nearly 10% of Sonoma's population, and preserve affordable housing in our community. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment on something not on the agenda tonight? All right, well, thank you for your comments. They are well noted. We'll now move on to the consent calendar, which is a sole item to receive the minutes from the regular Planning Commission meeting on July 17th. Do I hear a motion to approve, or does anyone have any changes?
Comment. I will have to abstain, so I don't know what that means for the quorum on voting for this.
We won't be able to do the vote.
Okay, then I guess we'll move along, and perhaps the next commission meeting will
Yeah, we
bring
can
this
get
up.
to the next commission meeting, and just for future reference, if you're ever absent from a meeting and you read the minutes, even if you weren't there, you can still vote.
I did not know that. So I did read the minutes, but didn't get, the whole meeting out of it. If you want me to vote.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you have any questions about what you read in terms of the minutes?
No, and I did watch most of the video as well.
All right, so should I make a motion now to approve the consent calendar? Do I have a motion?
I so move.
A second?
Second.
All right, so moved. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Nugent,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Neill,
Yes, and thank you for the education.
Commissioner Barnett,
Aye.
and Chair DAMBACH.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
All right. Well, that'll enhance our efficiencies. All right, now we'll move on to the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. The first item is 4.1. It's a request for continuation of the public hearing to the Planning Commission meeting on September 18th to consider certification of a final environmental impact report, adoption of the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program, and making the findings including a statement of overriding considerations and design review, density bonus, demolition permit, and parcel merger to allow for the demolition of an existing single-family home and the construction of a 50-unit multifamily residential community, including 13 affordable units located at 19320 Sonoma Highway. And so I guess it's just a motion that acknowledgement that we'll move this to sometime in the future, to September 18th.
Yes, and I so move.
Second.
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Nugent,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Neill,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnett,
Aye.
Chair DAMBACH.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
All right, moving right along to item 4.2. This is a discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve a modification to a use permit for an additional guest room and a bed and breakfast at 688 Broadway. So I'll turn it over to staff.
Good evening, Commissioners. Associate Planner Jacob Dunn. So I'll be discussing the modification of a use permit for an additional guest room and a bed and breakfast at 688 Broadway. The property is located in the Broadway corridor in historic overlay. It's 7,775 square feet and zone mixed use. The surrounding properties are also mixed use and have a range of businesses and residences around it. The project proposes adding an additional guest room without any modifications to the structure and no renovations to the inside of the structure as well. The residence was previously approved for a commercial beauty salon on the bottom floor, which will no longer be in operation. The site plan here shows the highlighted additional guest room on the second floor, which is in that master bedroom. The owner will occupy the bedroom on the first floor, which is where the beauty salon used to be. The property also has a separate cottage that is used as a rental at the rear and a carport located next to it that serves both of the residential uses. The previous permit approvals included a reduction of 2 off-street parking spaces, and the additional guest room will not require any increase in the parking spaces as well. So the applicant doesn't propose any changes to the structures, and so it won't affect their conformity with the development code. And in accordance with the use permit findings, the proposed use is consistent with the general plan by promoting and accommodating year-round tourism and encouraging home-based businesses. The use is allowed in mixed-use properties, and the additional room doesn't impact its compliance with those standards. And the additional room will not require alterations to the existing structure, so it'll be compatible with the surrounding properties still. Staff recommends a Planning Commission approval with modification for a use permit at 688 Broadway and approval of section 15301 of state secret guidelines, and staff's available for questions. Oh, and the applicant is available as well.
Yeah, I'm
Thank-
Pierre.
one moment, just before we start.
Sorry.
Does any commissioner want to discuss any ex parte communications with the applicant?
No.
Okay, seeing, we will move on to questions of the commission, of the applicant, thank you, or the staff.
I'm Pierre Durier, and I wonder if you have questions, extra questions.
Anyone? I don't.
Nope.
No?
Okay. Thank you.
All right, now I will, thank you for coming. Now I will open up to public comment on this agenda item. If there's anyone in the audience. Seeing no motion, I will close public comment and move on to any comments from commissioners before we move for a motion.
I like it. I think it makes sense. One slight change, I'd like to remind everybody, we say primary bedroom. We don't say master bedroom. So, but other than that, I'm in full support of it.
Anyone else? I would agree. I mean, this is consistent with us trying to continue the bolster the economics of our area, especially in the hospitality. So thank you for coming forward. One more comment?
Well, given that, unless the rules have changed, since I owned a bed and breakfast, which I sold in 2013, generally approvals for bed and breakfast in the city can be up to 6 rooms. And this is currently operating 1 room. Adding another room really poses no unusual circumstance, so I have absolutely no objection to it.
Hearing that, do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the modification of the use permit for additional guest bedroom and a bed and breakfast at 688 Broadway.
And a second?
Second.
So moved. So may we have a roll call?
Commissioner Nugent,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Neill,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnett,
Aye.
Chair Dambach.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to the next item is 4.3. This is a discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve a use permit for agricultural production and a produce stand on a residential property at 479 Church Street. So I'll hand it over to Jacob.
Yeah, so like you said, this is for the use permit for agricultural production and a produce stand at 479 Church Street. The property is located in the northwest planning area. It's 7,500 square feet and zoned residential low density. The property is surrounded by multiple land uses, so that includes mixed use and residential with commercial businesses that are bordering the property. You can kind of see that in the image there. There's parking lots surrounding it there. The project proposes small-scale residential agricultural production for the sale of flowers and succulents. The owner plans to sell on-site to local businesses and at farmers markets. The area used for agriculture will be located in the existing garden beds already on the property, and no construction or modifications are proposed at the project site. The site plan here shows the locations that are going to be dedicated for flowers and succulents to be grown for sale and highlighted in blue. A metal stand is depicted in the front of the residence, which will be relocated next to the entry pathway for accessibility purposes. You see that where it's circled in red. The applicant doesn't propose any changes to the structure on the property, so it won't impact setbacks or anything like that. So this item does need discussion due to the standards set forth for produce stands. Produce stands are intended to be an accessory use to a primary use of residential properties, and section 19.50.0.070 has 3 requirements that are expected to be met. So these include first the agricultural production taking place on site or on an adjacent parcel, which is under the same ownership. Second is the area devoted to agriculture is at least 50%. And third, the produce stand is owner operated. And I just want to highlight the staff report incorrectly states that the requirements for 1 and 2 were met, but it's actually 1 and 3 have been met. The use is permitted in 2 zones, residential hillside and residential rural, while it requires a use permit in residential low density zones. So for reference, each of these zones has varying lot sizes, or lot size requirements ranging from 10 acres to 7,500 square feet. And the residential low density zones have a limited lot area that is even less than what a 50% of the rural zones would be or need to provide for agriculture. And so requiring 50% agricultural area on residential low density only intensifies that agriculture component on that site, whereas the agriculture component is supposed to be accessory. So the space dedicated for that could be considered limiting when it comes to the property's ability to use it for residential primary use. So if the intention of this section is to allow it as a accessory use, then it might be necessary to amend the ordinance to reduce the total area required for agricultural production on those residential low density sites, specifically in those zones. And looking at the use permit finding requirements, the proposed use is consistent with the general plan by reinforcing distinctive qualities of Sonoma with an agricultural use and encouraging home-based businesses that are producing agricultural commodities. Mix that word up a lot. The use is allowed on residential low-density properties, but like we talked about, it doesn't meet section requirement A2 for produce stands. But if the Planning Commission finds that in order to promote small-scale agricultural production on residential properties, reduction to the standard might be necessary. The proposal also doesn't require alterations to the existing structures and maintains the existing site configuration, so it won't impact the neighboring properties or impair the character of the zoning district. Staff recommends Planning Commission discretion for the use permit to conduct agricultural production and operate the produce stand. And staff also believes that if the Planning Commission finds section 19.50.070 needs revisions, then they should direct staff to amend the ordinance, which also is slightly different than what the staff report recommended, just so you're aware. But staff is available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is the applicant here?
The applicant is here, yes.
Okay, you're welcome to come up. But before we start, any ex parte conversations with commission members and the applicant? Okay, so thank you. Now I will take questions from the commissioners.
A couple of things. I wouldn't want, well, would it be permissible for us to grant a variance tonight and then also recommend the modification of the code so that it, in the future, if the commission agrees, the 50% requirement isn't necessary?
Yes, the way that we worded the approval of the use permit was with this modification that you would be allowing this use, not specifically with the variance findings, as this site doesn't meet those specific findings. It's the code itself that is the concern.
And that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, so we believe that you can make that, and with that direction that we amend that code to reflect the ability for this project in the
Okay,
future.
but we don't know what the number's going to be in the amended code. I don't want to hang up or hold up this application while we wait for it to conform with the letter of the law. And I don't see a way for us to approve it without a variance at this point, given that the ordinance says what it says. And so, to me, the better and cleaner path is to technically approve it with a variance.
We can make the findings tonight.
And then request that staff update the ordinance, and we have a discussion on the commission as to what that update might be, because at this point, I don't know if it should be 10% or 25% or any percent. I mean, it kind of depends on the nature of the business as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, we can do that tonight.
Okay. And the second question I have is which block of Church Street is this on? Is this on the block that is in the, behind West Spain Street and First Street West, Second Street West?
It looks like it's right next to Wells Fargo's parking
Fifth
lot.
Street East.
Fifth Street
So-
West.
Oh, excuse me, Fifth Street West.
Oh, so this is on, this
Wells Fargo's parking lot is,
Across from
okay,
Nugget.
so this is the portion of Church Street that's on the west side? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the, all right, Commissioner.
Curious, so you're doing succulents and plants and beautiful, that's what you're going there.
Yeah.
If you were to do something that was consumable, vegetables or things like that, and maybe that's in a plan down the line, does that have anything to do with
okay,
changing the?
but, I wouldn't, I'm already like in the floral world, and I work as a floral designer, and so I already am growing flowers, and I have most of my life, but now, like, I can sell my flowers to the shop I work at, and other shops too are interested in purchasing my flowers. And I might have a stand sometimes, you know,
Okay.
because I'm in a popular area, and if there's like a large crowd of people in that area, I might.
So also, in order for you to sell at the farmer's market,
Yeah.
she also has to have a use permit
Yeah.
from the city to allow her to grow her flowers, which
Yeah.
she's growing in her backyard. So it's kind of like a whole combination of things. To get her county permit to sell, she also needs her permit from us as part of that.
But to answer the question, technically, she could, if she did want to grow some vegetables, with this permit, she could,
She
correct?
could grow anything under the agricultural permit, including flowers as horticulture.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Neill?
My question is on the same vein. There's the flowers on 7th Street East, and she
Yeah.
just puts out a cart a couple times a week or once a week or whatever. What is different? I know that's county. That's not. No, that's city, isn't it? That is city. But the park, the park, which is across the street and down further, we own that. But there's that gap there. Okay, so that's county. What are we talking about that's different though, with just being able to put a card out and sell whatever you want to sell versus doing a use permit on a property where it continues with the property?
So there's a couple of different things. One is we have a specific code section just for produce stands. So it's not really about agriculture, it's more about the produce stand itself and it occurring in residential zoned areas. So you're not in an agriculture area with a produce stand in front of your agriculture site. This is a produce stand in a residential neighborhood in most cases, and people walking up and down. So you're operating a commercial enterprise in a residential. Same thing as we require home occupation permits. If you're, we have some people like that have like a hair salon or some other kind of one-person service, and we allow that with a home occupation permit. So we do allow businesses, but we require additional permits. In this case, the city has required a use permit for a produce stand when it's in the RL zone. We do require a use permit for the agricultural growth, so that you'll see that that's for both, the use permits for both aspects of this use. And it's just a way to regulate commercial and our residential. I think with the changes, there'll be some changes around produce stands, but the fact that somebody has to grow such a large portion of their lot to be able to sell in front seems like an interesting connection. I'd be curious to know why that occurred. But if we're looking to encourage urban agriculture and its opportunities around that, I see this and some additional future code amendments around to help with more urban ag in our community.
Yeah, I wanted to explore that a little bit more. None of us probably know the intent of the 50%. And so I'm curious, if you have any initial thoughts about how you might amend, not the full not only for the urban, but also this idea about, do we need 50%? Or would we be amending various aspects of this code?
Oops, sorry, I turned it off. I don't know that we would have a percentage. I think that if you're growing it on site, like making that the connection, but how much you grow, I'm not sure what the intent of defining how much of space needs to be dedicated to grow in order to have a produce stand. I'd be interested to see what others would think about what that connection could be. But, you know, definitely making sure it's owner operated on site kind of concept. And that the agriculture is being produced on site, I think, potentially is another point of, you know, discussion versus just bringing, we don't want people buying things from other places and then selling them on there, right? So the idea is we're growing and selling and making it available. But we would look at other examples of urban ag ordinances around the state and see what they have as well to provide you examples.
And just as some reference, with this one, it's about 17% of the site would be used for the agricultural production. So if you're trying to get a frame of reference for how much is going to be occurring here, at least with this one.
Commissioner Barnett?
Well, we're sort of leapfrogging into the discussion of the ordinance changes, but I just want to add that I think the discussion of percentages is going to be interesting because I don't think it applies actually at all. You can create a hydroponic garden that takes up very little space and go up vertically and produce a tremendous amount of produce on a very small portion of property. So I think, I don't know where the percentage thing came from, and it'll be interesting to go back and find out when the actual ordinance was drafted and adopted and whether there's any record of the discussion. But I think it's outlived its usefulness, as many other things have, as technologies have advanced and ways of growing things have changed. So.
Yeah, something else I made sure I wanted to state in there is that the general plan does promote agriculture on residential lots. So, so I don't know where that connection came for the 50% on the residential lots when we're trying to promote small-scale agricultural production on what we already have as small lots in the city.
I would think it would be code by organic growth.
Yeah.
You know, where, which is, you know, good that we're bringing it up so that we can address it. Any other questions? Okay, Commissioner O'Neill.
Misty, are you the owner of the property?
Yes.
Okay, so if you move out and a renter comes in, what does that do to the use permit? Not that you're anticipating moving, but I just want to make sure we understand it for.
Question for staff.
Gosh,
Yeah.
I mean, I've never thought of moving out of my
Oh,
house.
no, it's for staff. I don't expect you to answer that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Thanks.
Generally, permits go with the land.
Yeah.
So by granting this tonight, are we changing a land use?
Well, there's that owner-occupied piece that you were discussing in there, and that's the piece I think that would be important, but I don't know how anybody would actually monitor it.
It's also leasee, so owner-occupied or leasee. So that's
Whoever's growing.
Yeah, whoever's there living on site.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. I'll open it up for public comment if there's any this evening. Again, seeing none, I'll close the public comments and ask commissioners if you have any other comments on this topic. Commissioner Barnett?
I love it. I mean, what's not to love about this? I wish every house in Sonoma did this. This is so cool. I'm so impressed that you did it this way rather than just setting things up and having code enforcement come. And I'm sure the code enforcer, Bob Smith, is also really grateful because he wouldn't want to shut this down because it's cool. So I have to say that I'll be in favor of it.
Commissioner Barnett?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve this use with the adoption of a variance and to direct staff to bring back the ordinance for review of its provisions in the future.
Do I have a second? Second. So the motion goes to roll call.
Commissioner Nugent,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Neill,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnett,
Aye.
Chair Dambach.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
It is. Well, these are all wonderful things, right? All right, and now items for discussion. This is where it gets really exciting, everybody. Item 5.1, discussion and consideration of draft changes to the design review exemptions related to awnings and similar structures. Hand it over to staff.
Okay, all right, next item. All right, I'm jumping right into it. So, at the last meeting, I had highlighted a missed opportunity in our design review ordinance after somebody came in and was asking about awnings, and I was like, that's something that we should have talked about. So I'm just focusing on awnings in this one. That's the one I could address like as quickly as possible. But I also had somebody ask for repainting, and I just wanted to clarify also in the repainting, so this is also for discussion. So it was repainting of buildings and structures is exempt, and then a specific section underneath it was more specific to the paint colors being consistent and compatible within for our historic sites. And then around the awnings, adding something that they would be compatible with the overall design of the main structure and to not obscure or negatively impact the architectural or character-defining features of the subject building. And then again, if it's listed, that the awnings would not exceed the width of the storefront opening or associated commercial window opening. And then I modified another section of the code in this. So we have a code that talks about signs and awnings, marquees, canopies. I was adding the word marquees because we do have a few marquees in town. And it's in regards to projections into the public right-of-way. And it's where we had some specificity around clearances. And so I added some code language around how high and how far from the face, as far as like not getting within 3 feet of the curb was already there, but just adding a little bit more detail. So that the portions of any permitted awning, canopy, or marquee should not be less than 8 feet above finished grade. That way the valance can go another foot down. So that would be at 7 feet. That the horizontal projection may extend to 3 feet. That was already in the code. That no portion of an awning shall be higher than the windowsill level of the lowest story. So the intent of that is that if you have a 1-story, it's really coming the windowsill, it's not covering the whole facade of the building. And then also that it wouldn't cover any kind of mezzanine level or extend up into an upper level, or cover any belt cornice, horizontal molding. So again, getting into those architectural details that it sometimes could cover up that we're trying to not. And also just kind of set an overall height expectation of not more than 16 feet if none of these other aspects are occurring on a building. And then also if we have piers or columns that define storefront bays, and that we wouldn't cover those up. So again, maintaining awnings that kind of help continue the definition of bays within our structures, and not just do a one big solid awning all the way across. So there's some in town that we have where the whole building is covered, wrapped in awnings. But on, if you look around town also, we see where each individual storefront or bay has an awning that comes out, and it's just within that space. So that's what it's kind of defining, is trying to set that up. So when we had talked previously, we had said if I gave you more detail, then you would be maybe more apt to allow staff to approve awnings. So this is just for discussion. This is some text for you to consider, but this is not the ordinance being at this point. I'm not giving you the ordinance for approval tonight.
Questions? Commissioner Barnett?
If you can go back to your previous screen. I'm a little concerned under 7 when you use the language negatively impact the architectural or character defining features of the subject building. It feels a bit subjective to me.
Okay.
And I'm wondering or hoping that we can better define what is meant by obscuring or negatively impact. I think you do that, interestingly enough, later on when you talk about a building with columns. You get very specific and so on, and it may be that that provides the way of doing it, which is to enumerate the elements of a piece of architecture that potentially could be negatively impacted by a canopy or some such addition. And maybe I'm thinking too hard about it, but with this emphasis in the development code on non-subjective standards, I guess I've become sensitized to it.
Other comments?
Are the words awnings and canopies interchangeable, or are they two different things?
Technically, they're different things. So I forgot to add the word marquees in here. Those are all actually different things. So where we have written them is that canopies are more like awnings. Canopies extend typically further out, but we in our code are saying that you can't have posts holding up any of your canopies or awnings or marquees, but you see canopies usually as over entrances. And then the marquees are the long, thicker structural elements where you see like in the theater, that's a marquee on the front of the theater.
Okay, Commissioner, not you.
A couple of comments. I'm not understanding why we would limit the awnings to not exceed the width of the storefront opening or commercial or associated commercial window opening. And you did mention that there's some in town. It would be really helpful for me to have some pictures. And just like, it'd be great if we had pictures of some of the ones that are around town so we can, I don't know, I can just understand it better. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on that. With regard to awnings over windows of like second or multi-story, is that language that Commissioner O'Neill just described meant for those, and where it's kind of aligned with the window?
Yes, and I can provide an example. We do have a couple in town that go all the way to the top of the building. And then we have others that wrap the buildings. So I can show you different examples, and then ones that are actually within the opening themselves. So you can kind of see what those differences look like.
And then I just wanted to follow on Commissioner Barnett's comment around negatively. I mean, it would be very helpful for staff to go back and articulate what you had in mind with the word negatively so that it can be more objective.
Does the issue of lettering or signage on the edges of a canopy fall under the sign ordinance? In other words, they accumulate or contribute to the total number of inches or in sizes permitted for signage? What's the treatment of printing or other information that are words on a canopy?
So the words that would occur on an awning or a canopy or marquee would be considered signage, and it would be part of the sign ordinance. When we're just doing an awning without any signs, then this would apply. So in some cases, we do have people that just have awnings without actual signs. And just to clarify that the address, like if they put the address number, that won't qualify as a sign because it's required under the fire code to put addressing. So we don't have the limits on that, the fire does. But we're gonna work with them and try to figure something out of where placement is recommended.
I have one other question regarding color of the awnings, and how would that be determined? I mean, conceivably, someone could take a very architecturally, an architectural period, and just modernize it. And I'm just wondering how staff is thinking about that in terms of color.
So we are just, in the sense of color, would just look at the overall design. And, you know, usually everything's matchy-matchy, I would say, with the trim and the awnings and the signs. They typically have the same schematic, and so that's something that we would look for, is just maintaining overall design in their choices of colors. But we're not specifically recommending any colors, including in the repainting of buildings, and not providing any direction on that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions by the commission? Any comments? Okay, one more.
Does this in any way help us with the Hop Monk giant tent that goes up every winter?
No, this does not. That is a temporary tent, and so it's a temporary use permit that's issued every year. And so that would fall under that section of the code. The reason why it's so tall is because the trees inside.
Well, I know it's not on the agenda, so maybe, can we talk about it tonight? Or
I recommend that we don't.
okay.
But
I'd love to have that one addressed so that it's not quite so hideous.
okay. Any other comments or questions or requests for when I bring this forward?
First, I need to open it up for public comment, correct? So any public comment on this? No, I'm seeing no. So I'll close public comment and open it up for any comments by the commission. All right, no comments other than I think it's a good start, and you've heard some of our input. So I suppose the next plan of action will be revisions and bringing it back in front of the commission. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're moving along very nicely. So now we're at 5.2, which is a discussion of the general plan ad hoc committee comments on available draft general plan elements, which include the local economy and the community noise elements. I'll turn it over to staff.
Okay. So this item is the beginning of the conversation around the ad hoc committee's comments on the available draft general plan elements. So we're going to start with 2 tonight.
Can you tell me first who's on the ad hoc committee?
Yes, the ad hoc committee consists of Commissioner Willers and Commissioner DAMBACH.
Okay, thank you.
And so these are the two elements that we have discussed as a group, and the comments were attached to what their comments were, and before you are these comments. And I don't know if you can see things. How clear is that to you guys? Okay. So in it, you'll see some text. Let me back up for a second. So each, the Climate Action Commission and you all have formed ad hoc committees for the general plan review. So those ad hoc committees are going to review each element and then discuss it together and then present to you, and this is what this is, what those comments are that have been discussed. You'll see my name on comments or notes because as we discuss them, I might add a few other comments for either me to look back at or to provide clarification in the future with when I basically collate everybody's comments into one document to provide back to the consultant. So I'm going to take commissioner comments from this commission, the Climate Action Commission, the General Plan Task Force, if the other commissions participate as well, and then the public. And so everything gets collated and into one document at the end that I'll give. What you see for you all is what Commissioner Willers and DAMBACH discussed, and you can see that's where I was going with. There's a little bit of red, and the red's not coming as clear. Okay. My eyes don't see it very well. So that's some of the changes that are being recommended. And then also, as I stated, there'll be other text written in, and then comments that I may make to make sure get addressed moving forward. So what I've proposed to do with Climate Action Commission, we did 4 elements at our last meeting, is I go through it basically in the element by section. I'm not sure how many of you had a chance to review before tonight, so I need you to tell me if this is too fast, but what I would say is, do you have any comments in this section, in the introduction? And then if none, then I just move on to the next section. And are there any comments or things you wanted to discuss in the background information? And then that way you as a group can discuss those. Otherwise, we would just move forward with Commissioner Willers and DAMBACH's comments to move forward as Planning Commission comments. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so the first section where we're seeing some commentary is around the background information. Before I start into all of that, I know that there were some concerns from Commissioner Barnett about this element. So I'll just go ahead and start with, does anybody want to have just general comments before we get into the weeds of the actual element about the local economy element?
If you can scroll down a little bit, I believe you're addressing some of the concerns that I had and had expressed, so.
Okay. So in this bottom part is, really talking back to what are our key trends in local economy and how do that, what's our risk to achieving these goals. There's been conversation also in some other places around our community and where we look to in the future. And so I think these were...
One piece I don't see in here is the changing patterns of work, with namely remote, at-home working, and the impact that will have on this idea of recruiting or finding or bringing employers to Sonoma with high-paying jobs. I'm not sure if we're ever going to see another office built here ever again. And with that and the other things mentioned, the concerns I had, you are attending to.
Okay. All right, we need to move on to goal number 1. Okay, so this section just highlights the goals, and then we'll get into the details of the goals. And as we go through, there may be some additional changes in the goals that then will need to be reflected within these little summary paragraphs. So just, you'll see some of that change later, potentially.
I have a question.
Sure.
When I was reading through this earlier, one of the things that I was curious about, and I'm wondering if you've addressed it, was an audit of the commercial spaces in Sonoma and the vacancy rate around them. And I'm wondering if, I think it said in there earlier that our sales taxes haven't been increasing, and I'm wondering how much of that has been impacted by vacant properties. And we've come to that discussion before about trying to do something about the vacant properties, but I think it was complicated by the fact that we had the Matson situation here as well. And I'm just wondering if there's some opportunities there if we look at the vacancy rates and how we can address that issue.
Okay. I'm going to keep moving unless I hear more. Okay, so the first goal is to maintain and promote historic character of Sonoma. So there's a lot of edits in this section and some commentary around more around not just historic character but cultural. I also intend to pull more information around heritage tourism. That was something I was really focused on when I was in school. I'm a Main Streeter, so I believe in historic preservation, economic development. So pulling in more of those concepts into this is my intent as well, more policies around that.
A comment as I see the pedestrian and bicycle-oriented design. This is referencing the plaza, but I did hear today that the county is going to be putting the number tracker things in on Denmark where it crosses Nampa Road to Burndale, and on Burndale further as it crosses 121, and it's going to be this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They're looking at whether or not there's enough bicycle and running traffic to actually put in some safety measures. So if you're at all interested in that, get out on your bike and your feet and go over it a few dozen times.
With your safety gear on.
Yes.
I saw something
Do you want me to go back up?
a little bit. There was something where there was a word that was needed correction. It said with the city, but it needs to be within the city.
It is LE 1.5. There you go.
There it is.
Okay.
Okay, I have a comment on LE 1A.
Okay.
I need to know what the hell the work with the Chamber of Commerce is currently, that we're continuing. I am unaware of anything that I would consider to be a collaboration on the economic development strategy. I know we are providing funding to the Chamber of Commerce to the tune of $100,000 or $150,000 a year. I don't know what it's for. It was instituted originally to support the activities of a business development person, so that the city didn't have to hire someone at its payroll and pay benefits. And the decision was to pay the chamber to hire someone, so Lori Decker filled that position for a number of years. She never identified candidates of companies to move to Sonoma or businesses to open. The chamber may have been helpful to some businesses who wanted to get started and needed to find out how to get a business permit, but I don't think that's rocket science. And Lori Decker left the chamber years ago. And nonetheless, the city has continued to provide this funding to the Chamber of Commerce. I need to know, before I can approve something that talks about continuing to work with the chamber, what it is we're actually doing at this point, because I'm unaware of anything. I'm not saying the chamber doesn't do things to promote businesses and to help businesses, but that's what they're constituted to do. My question is, what is the collaboration with the city of Sonoma? If the collaboration is simply supporting the chamber in its efforts to help businesses, then let's at least acknowledge that's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's something more going on, I'd like to know.
Okay.
I mean, I totally agree with you, and thank you for that comment, because that's what mine is the blue comment about trying to do something proactively. And if those funds were originally meant to hire a business development director and we still don't have that, I do think that needs to be reevaluated and those funds appropriately used for that purpose, because that is the same as reactivating the Economic Development Commission and creating this development strategy. So I just want to, support what you're saying, Commissioner Barnett.
So I think what I'm hearing and how I would edit it is that kind of a combination. We'll continue to work with the chamber to do X, Y, and Z, but we need to create an economic development strategy. And whatever that looks like with whoever's best suited to do that.
Well, as I say, I need to know what work we're doing with the chamber. What are we doing with the chamber? Do you know?
So
You don't know.
I have their scope of work. I know that part. I know what I'm doing with them.
Okay.
So what I'm doing with them is more around business education and getting permits and things like that. So I've been trying to work with them to do updates to their website, because they're the first touch most of the time to new businesses when they come in. And so trying to make sure that we're on the same page about what the requirements are. And so more around the education. There is a city council economic development subcommittee, I believe, that will be meeting sometime this year to go over their scope of work. I know we're trying to set that up. In general, what you see here are the things in the scope of work. So not the incentive part, so that's an economic development strategy aspect, but it would be more about working with the Chamber of Commerce to educate new businesses, do business retention and expansion. So I can write out more of those aspects of what we currently scope with them for the 100,000.
But when we think about the next 20 years, I do think we need to do more than that. I mean, if we're trying to envision like where we have to have a roadmap of where it is we want to go. So we do need to create it, but we also need to implement it.
So,
right?
Yeah, so this, maybe just do it.
Yeah.
So this is going to be create and implement an economic development strategy. We're not going to identify the who, because it may not be them. It may be somebody else. But maybe another one is then continue to work with chamber, and then it'll be more focused on the business retention, education, and expansion. They're pretty much our liaison between the city and businesses.
But I guess part of that also requires that we reevaluate the funding, because if the funding was originally for a business development person, that might be something that this new economic development strategy suggests to focus on. And then that would also mean that we'd have to reevaluate the funding for the chamber and what it would take for this scaled down operation of retention, education, and expansion.
Yeah, I
Well-
think that still provides you that opportunity to do both.
I mean,
Okay.
ultimately, what the city provides to the chamber in terms of economic support is beyond the purview of this commission. That's a city council policy decision. And they're the ones who are going to have to decide that for their own reasons. And I can't speak to what those reasons what might be at this point, but I can imagine a variety of reasons why that would be a, for lack of a better phrase, a hot potato to consider. That said, I think that rather than, well, I think this notion of continuing to work with the chamber, it would be better served by rephrasing it as explore opportunities to work with the chamber, because I am as yet unclear as to what it is that we're continuing. If it's helping the chamber understand how to get a business permit, that doesn't require any funding, and it doesn't require, I hope, any great amount of time on staff's part. I'm assuming we have printed materials for new businesses at City Hall that explain to them what it is they need to do. We do, don't we?
We have business license form.
Okay, well, I think it's certain, part of our economic development strategy would be to have a how-to guide for business in Sonoma, which could be a simple pamphlet with steps 1 through 10 or whatever it is of what you need to do. So anyway, that can be part of the business development or economic development strategy.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry, just go back a little bit. Okay, determine if TID funds can be used to determine, you have an extra 2 in there, to bring economic advisors to generate a proactive economic development.
This is more of a note for me to look at. Sorry.
Oh.
It's just more of,
That's okay.
more of this.
I'll stop. I have very strong feelings about the TID and the $2 million a year going for tourism promotion when the city has a budget surplus of $200,000 that it's all excited about. And just approved a 10-year extension of the TID for $2 million a year, when it could have been a 1% for $1 million a year. And it all started at $400,000 a year when I was on the city council. I'm stunned by that choice of the city council, and makes me nervous about the council's willingness to spend money when it doesn't have any, which is honestly the situation the city's in.
So some of the notes and comments are in the blue. And some of them are more notes for me to look into.
Notes in blue indicate what?
Just some comments. They're the comments from the ad hoc.
Ad hoc.
Mhm. So the wordsmithing is not there.
So the ad hoc committee, the two of you, first of all, thank you. And how regularly are you guys meeting?
It's about once or twice a month now, as the elements roll out. And then we'll also start the code at some point, which we haven't done
Okay,
at this
would,
point.
would there be value in having one of us join you sometimes at those meetings?
You're welcome to join the ad hoc.
Okay, yeah, I just think that it's such an important area, and you guys are doing an awful lot on this.
You were absent that day that we did all the ad hocs, so we just voluntold you for the sign one, but
Oh, I like this one.
you can join this one. There's an opening.
May I? Okay, yeah.
Okay. I will send you our next meeting.
I like the idea about finding ways to make money.
Well, it's going to be more than just that. We got a lot more elements.
I've got some similar comments about LE1F.
Okay.
Work with the Sonoma Valley Visitors Bureau. We not only work with Sonoma Valley Visitors Bureau, but we pay them $100,000 a year. I have nothing against the Visitors Bureau. They have an important role to play. I'm not sure why we're paying them $100,000 a year. I remember when we started paying them $100,000 a year back in the early 2000s. There seemed to be a good reason for it at that point in terms of recognizing the challenges of visitors serving businesses in Sonoma, the newness of the internet, and new technologies, and expanding the capabilities of the Bureau and helping them get up to speed on technology and so forth. But now it's 2025. I think, you can buy a laptop for $200. And the internet is something we all use every day, and the emergence of AI. I mean, if you probably went onto Google right now and said, tell me about places to stay in Sonoma, you get a nice write-up on Google's AI. So, work with the Sonoma Valley Visitor Bureau and other organizations. If I understand it correctly, the Visitors Bureau is the contracting agent for the TID that does the advertising placement. For that, the Visitors Bureau receives 15% of the revenues that get used for promotion. Now, those of you who are a math whiz can calculate 15% times 2 million. Why is the city of Sonoma paying the Visitors Bureau $100,000 plus free rent at the Carnegie Library for the last 20 years? Once again, this is a council decision, and we all love having a tourist-based economy, sorta, and it's certainly beneficial to the city, and we want to see it sustained and grow. But that's what the TID does, is attract overnight visitors. It's not the city's job to attract overnight visitors, and it shouldn't be the city's job, in my opinion, to fund the Visitors Bureau that's already being funded by the TID to attract overnight visitors. It's just that simple. And so I think the wording of this, once again, is, I'm not really sure what it means. What is the city currently doing to work with the Visitors Bureau other than paying it? I mean, maybe this should say continue to pay the Visitors Bureau $100,000 to promote tourism. I mean, at least that would be honest. I don't know what work means.
Well, I mean, I didn't change this. I just added some comments with Bill, but I mean, I would agree. I think this could also fall under this general strategy to come up with what we want our economy to look like, and what are their roles in those strategies. That might be a more directive language to use. And again, to identify new opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Do we go back up? Okay. We're not putting Sonoma in there, we were just discussing.
Interesting spelling there of Sonoma.
I just realized that.
I think there's a W missing in there somewhere.
I mean, if it's slang, it's slang.
Slonoma.
We're not putting it. I'm not putting this in the document.
There you go.
Okay, so on the page above that, I'm intrigued by that idea for expanding the hours for tasting rooms, because our plaza is so dead at night. And you go to Napa and it's so lively. So I find that really intriguing and worth exploring.
Well, and you know, my granddaughter, who's now going to turn 18, would agree with you about it being dead. And her complaints about nothing to do in Sonoma for people her age is legitimate. There is nothing to do. And she spends time in Santa Rosa and Petaluma, where there's things to do. But you know, these are all ultimately functions of economic development. In other words, if the city wants to create a venue for younger people that has nighttime music or dancing or other gathering places, that's part of that economic development strategy that has to be looked at overall. In terms of the native population, earlier in your introduction, it points out that the average age of the residents of Sonoma is 52.8, which means there's a lot of people older than that. You know, come 9 o'clock, I'm ready for bed. And so are a lot of other people who are in my age group. So, you know, the plaza is never going to be hopping because we don't have a big enough population of hopping people. We're hobbling people, not hopping people. So,
But how do we get more hopping?
well, you could have a hopping business, but if you don't have hopping people, you're not going to
Right.
have a business that makes
Maybe
it.
we can have walker races around the plaza.
Sounds great. No, my granddaughter brings up things like, God, what's it called? It's something like a Wreck-It room.
Oh, yeah.
I-
Rage room.
Rage room, yeah, where you basically you spend your money to buy an hour destroying things, hopefully in a safe environment, which actually, you know, kind of sounds like fun.
It's very gestalt, yeah.
All right, I'm going to move on to 2.
Have we defined sustainability anywhere?
No, that one is going to be mostly in, there's going to be parts of it in conservation and then also in the land use element.
I'll just say that there can be, you know, there can be economic sustainability. And I think that was the idea here, is that, I mean, the way that these LEs were written, you're talking more about that. But, and I think the comments that we made were around defining those standards, what those standards are. But I think part of also the economic, that's what evergreen means. You tagged it of define it, but that's exactly, it's what are you doing so that the economic development strategy does not become brittle, but can pivot and can be, you know, and can change so that it's being sustained into the future. So I just wanted to follow back to that comment.
Well, if I can just add a few ideas here. I mean, the notion of sustainability includes within it what it is that you want to sustain. And if we don't identify that which we want to sustain, then the notion of sustainability doesn't have much meaning. So, if, for example, the preservation of recreational open space is something we want to sustain, then sustainability would be policies, land use policies, and other policies put in place to protect and preserve and to ensure that the accessible recreational open spaces controlled by the city of Sonoma continue to be viable, well-maintained, attractive, and promoted to the public and visitors alike. Now, that would be a sustainable strategy. I think in the absence of in some way delineating what it is that we want to sustain, the idea of sustainability is just sounds good, but it doesn't have any practical application. There are certain things that I wouldn't want to elevate to the standard of sustainability. In other words, it may be that the economic sustainability of Sonoma would be an effort to rezone land and bring in big box stores. To me, that wouldn't be sustaining anything except the money flow, which, if this is an economic element and we're talking about sustainability and economic elements, what are we willing to sacrifice for the issue of economic sustainability? If we establish some parameter about what it is we want to sustain, in other words, and now I'm speaking admittedly from my bias, if sustaining our small town character, which I would define as generally quiet, less hurried, safe in terms of a public safety, and surrounded by healthy open space, if that is what we want to sustain, it's going to limit the decisions that we make about what the economic stability of the city is. And we have to also look at this. When we say the economic stability of the city, are we talking about the economic stability of city government? Whose economic stability are we attempting to satisfy? Obviously, government needs to have the funds it needs to operate. There's no question about it. It is also an insatiable maw of consumption, in my opinion. I'm not blaming city staff. I'm just blaming the times we live in. The fact is the cost of living goes up. The cost of employment goes up. 75% of the city budget is employee costs and benefits. We're on a inflationary cycle, an inflationary curve in terms of the relationship of government to the community, which seems unbreakable. Every year or every 2 years, there's increases in the cost of government. We can't seem to get out of it. We're spending more money on consultants than we ever have before. And I don't see this trend breaking. So what is economic sustainability? Is it sustainability so that the city's financial wherewithal can return that money back to the community in terms of civic improvements? Is that what we want to sustain? Or are we talking about sustainability so that we just can maintain fire and police and everything else is expendable? I mean, this is something we have to decide, and it may have impact on the nature of our strategy. I think all the rest of that the City of Davis and the clear objective standards, green-blue infrastructure, that's all great.
This may be where we could also bring in what you were talking about with the commercial, like what's the available commercial sites?
Yeah, I was thinking that.
I'm curious about the vocational technical curriculum, because we're on a very fast track now that we're recognizing that our youth are, most of them are not, they're not on a path to go to four-year college. And so, and they have no other options. And if we train them and we provide them with the opportunities to develop the skills, they have some really terrific futures. And we just don't provide that in this community, in any of the communities. But it's becoming very, very clear that college is, it's not necessary, nor is it really the path that most young people choose. It's cost prohibitive. They don't want to be in that environment. And I would focus on how do we get these, what is that? What are we providing for them that they can choose different paths? It's critical.
Yeah, and following up on that, as we look at school consolidation, this is a school board issue, I know, but if we end up with an empty campus, I wonder if we couldn't have a vocational center there.
Yeah, I'll just say that I think there's a huge opportunity that Sonoma could be like really known for this, and would be somewhat unique and potentially draw in, more skilled workers and even workforce or folks that, or businesses.
Well, just as a general comment, I think I've said this before, planning for 20 years is ridiculous. It's impractical. The world is changing too quickly to even think in 20-year terms. Now 5 years is more realistic, 10 years at a maximum. But here we are trying to come up with a document for 20 years. I mean, who would have predicted 10 years ago that AI would already be replacing jobs all over the place? And that's just at its very beginnings. I don't know how a young person today plans for a career. I really don't. My granddaughter was thinking of something in the medical field, but even the medical field is undergoing huge transformations. And things that used to appear to me to be a secure and interesting career path are questionable, even in fields like law and accounting and all these areas that used to require individual expertise and people skills are succumbing to technology. So I don't think we can answer this question particularly well, and I think we're not alone in it. Our whole culture is going through a transition and transformation that's highly unpredictable. And I think a question that would be worth looking at is what falls under the category of resilience. What are the skills and capabilities that this community, and when I say this community, I'd say the city of Sonoma and the Sonoma Valley in general, needs in order to feel like it is effectively planned for resilience? What we do know is that we're going to encounter repeated shocks to the system. both natural, economic, political, and technological. And they're all going to require some kind of response, and they're all going to require some kind of resilience. If it's a natural disaster, it's going to be, do we have the capability and the skills at hand to provide for ourselves in the case of a natural disaster? I mean, the police and the fire department are only so many people. They have families that are honestly located in other communities. We can't necessarily assume that they're going to hang around Sonoma because it's their day job if their families are threatened in Lake County or wherever it is they live. So what does a community need in the case of an electrical grid collapse?
Hey, you know, you made me think of something. Yes, our firefighters tend to live all over the place. Guess what? We also have firefighters from all over that live here. And wonder what we could do to kind of like tap into that. I mean, my nephew's a firefighter in Oakland. He lives in Glen Ellen. His next door neighbor is a firefighter in Oakland. He lives in Glen Ellen. My neighbor off Dale is a firefighter in Oakland. He lives here. So yeah, some of our firefighters live elsewhere, but we are an attractive community. We're a community that people that don't have to commute every day really do want to live here, and firefighters don't commute every day. I mean, that's something maybe we're doing already, but I wonder how we could perhaps enhance it.
Well, I mean, I think one thing you've done is to identify the skill set of people who reside in the community, meaning the city and the valley, who in the case of an emergency, can provide the expertise and talent we need to help recover and be resilient in the case, certainly, of a natural disaster.
They do. They were all here in 2017.
Okay, so.
And they brought all their friends.
And do we know who they are?
Oh, yes.
Okay, well, that's great. So if we know who they, you may know who they are, but I'm not sure if the city does.
The firefighters know them. They all know each other.
Well, that's good. Now we need to have an official list that's available to send to people. That's just one example. I mean, we could end up in a food emergency. There are all kinds of things from which we need to find resilience, to be able to support each other and to keep the community from collapsing, essentially, in the case of a very unanticipated, terrible situation. So I'm not sitting here tonight saying I have the answer to this question. I'm saying that when we talk about what opportunities we can offer to the young people who live here, or what career paths might be and so forth, we can also think in terms of not just the rosy future that people can have, but what is it the community will need if it runs into trouble? And what kind of skills are those? What are the talents? I mean, we have people who grow food. Do we have a database in the city of our local farmers? Do we know who they all are? We know the ones who are part of the farmers market. I don't know if the city of Sonoma itself has a database of all the food resources we have around.
I don't think most people would give you that information.
You don't?
I wouldn't.
Well, we'll find out, I guess. When you're talking about building resilience, though, you can't have resilience if you don't know what you have to rely on, if you don't know what your assets are.
Well,
So
I can
that's
make
all
a
I'm saying.
comment that I do think there, and as we move along, I do think there is a network of people who understand what organizations in the Valley provide food for people. That has come together. There's a food navigator. There's now a network. So I think that if we could elevate this a little bit, I think what we're hearing here are a couple of things. One, around resiliency, is looking forward, knowing what the trends will be predominantly in these areas, and kind of building policies or programs where we can use our local resources or to fulfill some of these trends. I do want to say that 100%, I guarantee you, in 20 years, people will need to live somewhere, they'll need to drive around in something, or get somewhere through transportation, they'll need to eat. So I do think there are skills that are around people and place and living that are those skills that we can look at in addition to understanding what are the risks or threats that layer on top of that. Do you want to make a comment?
Elder care is going to be a big one.
Yeah, we've included more around aging and aging in place in some of the other documents too with the other commissions, but we didn't note it in here as well of the senior. So this last bit is just around mostly the 8th Street corridor comments.
Yeah, I had a comment on this one. I like the idea, but I think it's impossible to implement, partner with local hotels to charge a climate sustainability fee, because people will just lie. They'll look at MacArthur Place where they park out in the street and they say, you know, oh yeah, I came here on EV, don't need a charge. So I think it's, I'm always dubious of people, so I think it's a good goal, and I think it's a discussion we can have with some local hotels to see how they feel about it, but I think it'd be a really difficult one to police.
We had talked a little bit about the development of Lincoln more around the green incentives, and so we could reword it in that way. We also talked about you're seeing more hotels. When I booked my flight, I saw it, of where they're doing basically green dollars, where you can just tack it on if you choose to, kind of thing. But just providing that as an option even is better than nothing at all.
And regarding the 8th Street corridor, I would like to see included in that giant building on Highway 121 at the corner of 8th Street that has sat vacant. When was that built? 6 years ago? The 250,000 square foot warehouse that was going to be the Amazon distribution center but wasn't. So, I mean, that's an economic opportunity. If businesses do go in there, employees go in there, it's not in our city limits, but it's certainly right there on that 8th Street corridor, and that's 250,000 square feet. It's huge. So the for lease, for sale sign is still sitting there. I don't know if anybody's ever had a conversation with any of those brokers, but I think it'd be really interesting to talk to those brokers and say, okay, what could we as Sonoma work with you on this to try and get this place leased or sold? And the taxes there would go to the county, not to us, but I still think it's an opportunity.
Okay. All right, next one, economic diversity. So comments are more around just expansion to be more complete thoughts on policies. The who, the how, the what. And again, some of these are leftover, so like the established four corners, that's leftover from the last general plan.
The one before that.
Yes, so a lot of these are leftovers that we haven't done yet, accomplished, checked off the box. So they may not be applicable. They may not be, I mean, I still think Four Corners is the gateway to our city. What that looks like could be different than what was originally envisioned 20 years ago, but.
Well, rather than saying establish Four Corners of Gateway, I would say develop incentives to establish Four Corners. If the city doesn't have something to put on the table to essentially outside interests who see an economic opportunity there, nothing's going to happen. And that's why it hasn't happened, because the city has not stepped up as a player. We're full of ideas and aspirations, and we don't ever put any money on the table.
Remind me, which is the cross street in Four Corners? Is it Leveroni?
Leveroni.
Napa? Okay.
Yeah. And this has been in the general plan since the first one I worked on in 1993.
Oh, so it's 40.
94. I mean, it's the lodge was supposed to be the beginning, you know, the sort of anchor for that location, and was supposed to revitalize that whole section. At one point, there was a deep discussion about the positioning of that stone building that's on the lodge property that faces the street, and there was, in the original plan, it was positioned somewhat differently, and it was repositioned to create a public park space available to the neighborhood. Subsequently, in a couple of years after it had opened and gone through its transitions as a hotel, an application was put into the Planning Commission at the time, I was no longer on the city council, to construct a stone wall that essentially barricaded that building and the so-called park space from the street. I never understood why that was approved, because one of the conditions of approval was the creation of a public serving space at that corner, which has no public space. And lo and behold, it got walled off, and now, to add insult to injury, they erect a tent during the rainy season and hold events and weddings and things in the tent on the other side of the stone wall that you can't get past. And that's what happened to our gateway. Then you add that Mr. Mattson bought the building across the street, now housing Artifact Design and Salvage, and that building's up for $2.5 million for sale, apparently, but has never been improved, and it's just basically like an old warehouse inside. I don't know who's going to buy that or for what. You've got Don's Auto Service smog station across the street on the south side of the intersection. He's apparently immortal, and I still see him around town, and every once in a while we have a little conversation with each other, and the property looks just like it did 25 years ago. Exactly. And then you've got Broadway Market on the other corner, which I'm grateful for. I'm glad Broadway Market's still there and can make it, and they have their clientele. And, you know, it looks like 1935. And that's our gateway. What are you going to do?
And it's not within the city limits.
And it's not in the city limits yet.
But they make really good sandwiches.
They do. They do. I like their meatloaf sandwich.
And they have a really good wine selection.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But ultimately, you know, the way this game is played is that the city's going to have to pony up some money, and until it comes up with a pot of cash and can say, okay, if you want to buy this Mattson building and put in a bowling alley, I'm just talking off the top of my head, we'll help you, because we need something like that. But if we can't come to the table with something to offer, it's not going to happen.
Okay.
So I would suggest that a recommendation would be to develop incentives for the development. Oh, there you go. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and along with 3.6, I mean, I think this can be rolled up into that economic strategy, yeah, because it's pretty vague right now.
To new retail spaces, retail is getting killed. I don't know if the idea of new, smaller, street-facing retail spaces is a viable idea for the future.
Well,
The retail spaces we've got are just, they're suffering terribly.
Again, I think there's an opportunity to have some kind of development plan that is strategic. So people need coffee, people need, local things. And if a strategy is around walkability, and we're building out that corridor with some apartment buildings, or there's a plan on West Napa to have housing with some kind of retail space, I mean, that's a strategy where people will still need brick and mortar spaces, but we have to have a strategy around it.
And it may not be retail in the sense of like a clothing store or things that we would buy. I mean, we now have an empty big box that we're gonna figure out what's gonna go in there.
What's that one?
Rite Aid.
Apartments.
So I think, but going back to what you were saying of like what we do see coming in right now are, what do we get calls? We get calls, of course, for wine tasting, coffee shops. I mean, we just got the new flower business down where Jacobs, in front of Jacobs. We're not seeing like traditional retail really at all. In this area, the Plaza, the court, and Broadway corridor. But I did have a conversation recently. So we have these small little, like at the farmer's market, we have all these little small businesses, mom and pop businesses that do look for spaces. So there seems to be a need. It's just the cost, right? So it's the incentives and how do we work that out for just little pop-up places where people can, where somebody that, the soap lady that's at Tuesday Night Market, that she could go have her booth within a space. She can't afford the whole space, but she could afford a booth within that space. And so a group did come talk to me about what are those opportunities here. And so I pointed them in the direction to talk. But
That would be something that could be really useful, especially in winter season, holiday season. And I wonder if the chamber could help with that, but like a maker's market kind of place where you have several retailers sharing the expense of
I
a
used to go
smaller
to those
place.
all the time in the city and in Oakland and stuff.
And some of them fly.
And we
some
have some of these small spaces that have been vacant for a long time that could fit like 6 little vendors in it. But again, it's about working out what that cost would be with these vacant spaces that have been vacant for a long time.
And I'll tell you that I personally tried to do that with a space that used to be G's. And the owner is one of the banks, and they refused to budge on the price. And it was specifically for a maker's mark, like a cooperative. So I do think we need the chamber to step up here and help. If the city can't mandate what the rent is, but other than, trying to figure out that vacancy fee, this is where we actually need some heavy lifting from the chamber to make those kinds of things happen.
So that sense of the co-op space, co-working, I think there is an opportunity for that. I think we do have a lot of people interested in their individual business that just can't afford to actually have a storefront.
Which bank?
It's Chase.
Chase? Why don't we, if nothing else, do a social campaign and try and encourage Chase to change their behavior?
Well, that would be a great thing for the chamber to lead, don't you think?
Okay.
So this is where we're getting into a little bit of that with the more locally produced. And and this kind of goes along with what we saw today too with the produce stand, and she grows her own flowers and wants to do more in the farmer's market world. What in the world? Missing a thought. So, I've had mixed reviews about having housing in the local economy element. My understanding and kind of the connection between bringing this into this as a goal in the local economy was providing housing for our workforce, and that being that nexus. And so that's kind of why like some of these goals or policies rather are being pulled or highlighting some that are from our housing element. But that's really what that focus. So some of the ideas are just around workforce housing.
I personally think the more we can bring this to light, the more important it is. So I don't mind seeing it here as long as as we're focusing on workforce.
Well, the only concern I've got, because I completely agree with focusing on workforce, but the reality is that workforce housing in Sonoma means affordable housing. And the two terms have become somewhat interchangeable, but the key to it, and we really need to, I'm talking to Therese now, we really need to get together and talk about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And I have had a conversation with the mayor about the three of us sitting down and talking about it. So I will make that happen. If we're talking about workforce, we're talking about affordable. If we're talking about affordable, we're back to the same topic of what is the city going to put on the table to make it happen. Relying on the goodwill of the development community is not going to produce workforce or affordable housing. And we're going to have to pony up monies to provide the incentives for market rate developers to build there and have to include affordable units, and preferably have the money to incentivize an affordable housing developer to build the housing we want. And so I think it certainly has its place in the economic strategy. If the Chamber of Commerce frequent sentiments are to be believed, the greatest and most frequent complaint of local businesses in Sonoma is they can't find employees because they can't afford to live here. What more do we need to know? I mean, there's the linkage between the housing and the economic element. So I don't think you have to make any, think you have to stretch anything to link the two.
I have never heard of any community that says labor's abundant because it's so affordable to live here. I think it's all relative. I mean, our prices are higher, our wages are higher, but I absolutely agree with Chair DAMBACH that I think we need to keep this front and center and really recognize the nexus between the local economy and the housing situation. And the more that we can do to keep that in mind, we can continue to develop and change and tweak our housing plans and codes so that we can make this more of a viable option for people.
I just want to call out that one of the comments here is to recognize the type of properties we have within the city, because we really don't have space for large, highly dense projects for the most part.
No, we don't, and yet, for example, on 5th Street West, there's currently a vacant building up for sale that used to be the Jehovah's Witnesses church.
Exactly.
Now, it's not a huge piece of property. Looks to me like it's the building on it is nothing to speak of. It's a tear down, and but you could probably fit 8-10 apartments on there, at least. And I don't know what the property's selling for, but it's a perfect example to me of a situation where if the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund had $10 million in it, and we could use a couple of million of it to buy the property and then contribute that to an affordable housing developer to build on, that's the way this stuff gets built. You know, you may say, okay, 10 or 12 units, you know, it's a drop in the bucket on our RENA numbers, and it is. But at least it's a start, and that's the way it's going to happen, and we're going to have to build on it that way. And it just kills me to see vacant properties like that sitting, and they have potential for housing, and the city doesn't at present have the wherewithal to make it happen. And it just breaks my heart.
I represented a party on that property. It didn't go through, but they were looking to build a type of a music school, and it was really ideal because of the situation of the theater seating and then the stage, and then they had the little office. But to answer your point, it's on the market for something like $789.
That's nothing.
And I think you could,
Wow.
if I remember correctly, I don't know what I know that there was, I can't remember the size of the lot, but I know that you could put up, there was a couple, you could put up some auxiliary, yeah, something to think about. Have the city buy it.
Yep.
The city actually does have some property that it could develop. It's small, but there are some lots. And that wasn't captured here, but we do have some lots, and I don't know, you know, that could take some small micro units. One of our commissioners has requested a break, so I didn't know how much further we had for this particular element.
I think that was it.
All right. Would it be all right if we took a 5-minute break at this time? At 8 o'clock? I will officially reconvene. It's approximately 8:07. And we will continue now onto the noise element.
So this one is short and sweet element. A lot of comments that we received, and you'll see it here too, is around vehicle noise and idling noise. I'm just, from the person that's in charge of code enforcement, it's hard to enforce these things. Because we have to see it or hear it and be there for it to happen.
Can I make a comment? I've seen several articles recently in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal about cameras that can pick up noise. So you're picking up the noise, the decibels, as well as the license plate. So there may be a technological opportunity, and I just became aware of that.
Okay. The other, let's see, comments are on the side in this one's in PDF. So the comments are over here. And so you'll see stuff that we're just adding some language or things to look up more. Anybody have questions before I move on? So there's 2 goals.
I'm just trying to find out what is, since this has to do with noise, what does vibrant mean? A vibrant mixed-use corridor, what does that mean?
Active. Loud.
Does it mean loud?
It means active. Vibrant means active.
I think the word vibrant is something positive.
So usually vibrant mixed-use corridors means there's the activities happening all the time because you're having residences as well as you have businesses. And so vibrant meaning high activity levels.
Okay.
And I think they were just trying to use a word other than active because they used active under downtown. Okay, go to the first goal. These are just definitions. So local economy is not a required element. That's something that we just add. So there's no state law requirements around what has to go into it. Noise is a required element by the state. So we do have certain things that we have to put in here. So you will see a lot of detail in certain things and you're like, why is there that level of detail? And it's mostly their future mitigation measures for development projects.
And just for the record, I brought this up when we had the conversation. You know, honestly, I'd like consistency around this. If there's this much level of detail for certain things, then I think that without getting too specific, we could add additional detail to other elements, policies that allow direction. Because many of what we see are very general, they're vague, you're not sure what's going on. So that was just a general request that I had made where if there's an ability to add enough detail so people are crystal clear on where we're going, I would advocate for that across all of the policies.
Some of this is just more, this is where you see that specificity. And it's how our code is written specifically.
Jennifer, I'm wondering, the neighborhood north of Mission that's having the two biggest noise issues right now related to Stompers and Transcendent. I'm surprised nobody's here tonight for this discussion, but I know that that's been a newer issue. And how has that feedback been incorporated into this document? Has it yet, or is there something that we need to do to kind of add those back in? Because I'm not seeing anything that I can really kind of pinpoint it into. But I know with the Stompers and their speakers and Transcendent, and I've heard it up there, and it's really loud. So how does that fit in? It's definitely far exceeding the noise levels that are considered to be acceptable.
So, couple of different things. So this is more transportation noise aspects, but the code itself does have specificity around special events and outdoor venues. And specifically, if the city is issuing a permit, it does not have a limit, so the city can set whatever limit they want. So when we talk about what's acceptable, that's where the public would get involved in voicing their concerns around those permitted events and things. The one that's come up more so we did have a little discussion around this in the task force, so we did have people come to that meeting in regards to this, and also in regards to some noise complaints that we've had for outdoor music at a business, at a restaurant. And so how do we deal with those noise? And this is where I was getting into starting my conversation around enforcement is difficult sometimes around that. But the key is to create mitigation for them to implement to help bring down those decibel levels into, is it setting certain time frames outside of the times that we already have limited noise? So we change the noise levels depending on the day of the week. We change that time of day between night and daytime. We then set decibel levels based on that. We measure if you, in our case, like right here, we are public, but next door, actually, is it public? Yeah, we're public, or a park, one of the two. But regardless, the neighboring property is residential. So we would measure at that property line for what residential would be. So what is that standard? And then how far are we above, and how do we try to mitigate and make changes to whatever that event is that we are permitting? So those are typically one-offs, and that's why this code is written that way. We still have it in the code, but we haven't applied the live music permit. It used to be an annual permit that I haven't seen, since I've been here, I haven't seen them. So bringing that back. So we have different tools in the code that we need to start utilizing more.
And how is it enforced? Does that go through the police or code enforcement?
Both.
Okay.
So I get code enforcement complaints. And so with those, then I work with our code enforcement officer to do the measurements at specific times of the day, on random times and random days when we know something's going to happen, so that we can try to get measurements. But again, if that band was there this night and then we changed bands another night, sometimes we have different levels of sound and music. Weather impacts sound. There's so many different things that impact how noise travels. It's hard to say, okay, you're compliant. So we have to do lots of times. We have to do lots of measurements. If there's a complaint at night, I'm working with the sheriff's or police chief now to order the meters. And so if there is a noise complaint that comes in at night, that's after the allowed time, that deputies can have a meter to do the measurement at that time.
to measure that complaint and to take record of it so that we are getting in the moment concerns measured. And then we can move forward.
Jennifer, is there an opportunity along those same lines? Is there an opportunity to explore meters? So if an organization comes in for like a restaurant for outdoor entertainment or music, is there an opportunity to actually install some meters in real time so that they're actually there? We can get the data in real time, and then enforcement could be done kind of in real time?
So it was more of, I've seen them where they're installed and you actually can see them in real time and adjust your noise in real time.
Exactly.
So it's not a report out kind of thing. It's more of, I recognize I'm above my limit, I'm going to adjust my sound.
But if it's measured at the residential property line, it may be quite different if that meter is at the commercial business, but you want to measure it at the residential property line. How do you do that?
Math?
Math, so you do
It's
like calibrate them and then you can
Yeah.
figure out, okay, if it's 65 decibels here, it's 120 there or whatever.
Well, it'd be dissipating at the
Right,
distance,
I'm-
right?
I'm
But yeah,
referring to
so
residential
it's
and commercial.
there's actually mathematical equation around sound travel. In a vacuum, it would be X, and so we kind of treat it like that. And so then we say, all right, so if it's outside, we know we want to get it down, a little bit, whatever that is. What are the options that are out there to help dissipate that sound to prevent it to travel? Outside is harder when we're not in a constrained space, but some of our outdoor music providers, we can also say, no, it has to be acoustic. It can't be amplified sound. Some of the restaurants, that would be more of like the regular business. Special events, the stompers, they're gonna have acoustic. I mean, not acoustic, but they're gonna have amplified sound. So how do we work with them to keep track how loud they're going? We recognize that speaking voice is going to be louder than a full band and singing. How do you adjust and calibrate for that as you go through an event? So we have, Stompers is not in the city, it's in the county. I mean, it's in the city, but it's a county property and a county agreement with the Stompers, but we're working with them. We're going to talk more about transcendence tomorrow night, so listen in about that. But again, those are special one-offs, so we'll treat them a little differently. But I don't know if you've been to Murphy's, but they've put up the curtain, but if the curtain's not pulled, then it doesn't do anything. So there's certain things like that that can be done. And then if they continue, there's a comment over here by Donna. If they continue, we revoke their permit and their ability to do that. If they're not listening and we've tried and tried, then we have a process by which we revoke permits. And then the question came up about applying again and the criteria and penalty fees and things. Those are typically the things that we would put into the code itself. But those are the kinds of, that's the outcome of not complying. Noise is fun.
So can I go back to the good discussion we just had here? I mean, is perhaps one of the policies that I heard is to create a policy where there's using technology to do real-time decibel tracking for certain establishments that want to have, that meet certain criteria around outdoor, so that there's a policy, a direct mitigation. Can you flesh that out a little bit?
Yeah, we can flesh out some such as, but we wouldn't say this is what we want you to do. That's Planning Commission could do that just based on whatever information that you have and what may be needed. And we can always make it part of the application, like provide us what your sound mitigation is going to be. One jurisdiction I worked, every time the door opened. Obviously, a lot of noise came out with that. And so the rule was you can't keep the door open. The door has to close and stay closed unless somebody's exiting. But you can't just keep it open because that noise is just escaping. So there's things like that when it's like inside and it's a live band that's amplified. We've had a few businesses that you guys have approved with acoustic entertainment. So then again, is there a complaint associated with it? And then that's what we're enforcing.
Well, once again, I think that there are technological opportunities at present and that will be in the future that could mitigate some of these problems. For example, the Stompers are using a very old-fashioned loudspeaker system, not very different than what was used in 1950. There are, and have been developed for many years, what you can refer to as a soft speaker system, which involves multiple speakers closer to the audience you're trying to reach. Because the only reason the loudspeaker system works is because you've got to cover a large area of great distance and you want people to be able to hear. So it's all up at a very high decibel level. But a soft speaker system brings the speakers to the audience rather than bringing the sound to the audience from a distance. And so you have multiple smaller, lower volume speakers located right where the people are sitting, and you don't end up with that same kind of neighborhood-wide volume. Now, once again, if the city has a vested interest in protecting the quality of life of the residents near the stadium where the Stompers play, and get back to my endless comment, if the city had the money to help fund the installation of a soft speaker system, albeit on county property, county's not going to object, to the benefit of the surrounding area, that would be great. But it isn't like there aren't alternative modalities of keeping people engaged with what's going on in a game without having to essentially blast it at echo levels from towers that covers end up traveling 5-6 blocks. So.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Good discussion. I will open it up for public comment, and we have a comment from the public. Thank you for hanging out.
Thank you, Tom Graves. I live in Sonoma. Thank you guys for doing what you're doing and giving so much attention to a lot of important issues. I could talk to you a lot about what I've heard tonight. I just wanted to say I attended Transcendence Saturday night for the first time. I was the second youngest person there. My wife, who's not here tonight, was the youngest person there. I don't know what decibels they were projecting at, but at intermission, when many of us went to the porta potties, they had porta potty wardens there, and they put the fear of God in us to do what we had to do and get back to our seats, because they had an agreement with the city to stop at 10 p.m. And she had her watch, and they were on track to stop at 9:59. And you better have done your stuff and gotten back to your seat. And many people were having a hard time doing that. My point is, legitimate organizations like that will take whatever you tell them very seriously. So I think that's, as long as we have people who do what they're supposed to be doing, I think that's a giant step towards controlling sound issues. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, so there's no one else in the audience, so I'll close the public comment and just ask if there are any more closing comments from commissioners on these topics.
I would be sorry.
Go
ahead.
Commissioner Nugent.
Just a comment on transcendence. Our first time was Sunday night, and we've been in this community. I mean, we've supported transcendence, but we just never had seen we've just never seen a performance, and it was spectacularly good. I mean, like, this town is so lucky to have that level of talent that Sonoma, I mean, right there is a way to promote tourism in this town. It was so well done. Agree with you about the uneven surface and people can't see and they're drinking wine and all that, but it went off without a hitch, and it was thoroughly enjoyable and a real pleasure to have that in our community. It was great.
Commissioner O'Neill?
My comment would be for the special permits, if it's the permitting is being done at City Council, because we didn't see any of those permits.
City Council, so we do have a special use permit process, and City Council can modify it because we consider it a special event. It's not an actual use.
Well, if something is a special event but it happens 20 times in the summer, I think it needs to go through a traditional planning process. So maybe we could call it another name, but it's not a special event. Special event's 4th of July. It happens once a year. The Transcendent, I don't know what their performance schedule is, but it's multiple times a week, many weeks a year. And Stompers, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I do, I love Transcendent. I loved it better when it was in Glen Ellen because it was prettier, but I do think that we need to respect the people that are hearing that noise at a level far enough away that it isn't pleasant and it's disturbing their ability to enjoy their homes. So I really don't want to give them the special event permission. I think we need to hold them to a higher standard, and maybe a recurring event is a better term, but I would like to see that go through a more disciplined process. I think this one was just shotgun. They just did it to see how it went, and the results have been overall very good, but there's some things that could certainly be improved, and I think the noise level and the way that it's dealt with the neighborhood is really important.
And just a question and a comment, again, after the conversation here, is there a potential utility in this element to, again, create a policy where we're constantly looking at new technology to help us enforce the sound, or is that something that we take for granted that the staff is doing? Because there's a difference between knowing that there's new technology and how do you go about doing that? So just a suggestion. All right, and with that, we're completed with that action? Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you for bringing it forward. So now we'll move on to item 6, which are director comments and announcements.
Sorry. Like thinking. So our next meeting, as you approved today, is going to be going to have Montaldo, so that's going to be the main item, but probably will add some additional elements to discuss, and then given the time, we'll see how far we get with that. I'm just given
more of the general plan and the needs and discussion and the code. I may, at that meeting, also recommend, so start thinking about having a special meeting to kind of throw in there, that we can focus just on the general plan and the development code discussion, sometime probably in October. So just start thinking about that, because I'll probably, just given in our time situation.
Is our next meeting going to be our third Thursday?
Yes,
September 18th.
correct.
I have a question. Any other announcements, Jennifer?
I'm going to release the next element this week. The utilities element is the next one, so that'll be released this week. Also, we'll be releasing in the next 2 weeks, the notice of preparation for the EIR, the environmental document for the general plan, to get that started. So we'll have a public meeting that'll be announced with that, and that will occur on September 15th. So before our next meeting, there will be a meeting in regards to the general plan EIR. Again, a notice of preparation is really to discuss environmental concerns, not the general plan itself, but just environmental and what studies and things will be done. So there'll be a presentation by the consultant on what they're going to be looking at, and then time for comments. And that'll be at the community center for that.
Commissioner Barnett?
With regard to the EIR and its preparation, is the cost of the EIR, is that part of the contract with a consultant?
That's correct.
Okay. And has there been any consideration, and I don't know if there are or have been, effects of the current changes in state law as pertains to the EIR that are going to affect ours?
No, not to the general plan EIR. What it does, some of the new laws are basically saying if your general plan EIR, then that's basically pushed down in some situations. It allows for, like, if we change, if we were going to change the housing element, one of the laws was that your housing element allows for you to do all your zoning changes without another environmental document. So that's kind of where those go. So I think the general plan EIR still needs to be the full thing, and then there'll be potentially less for projects, but because we're doing a programmatic EIR so that projects can build off of it.
All right, I have one question, and it kind of pertains to the public comment of non-agendized items, and I was wondering if you are in a position to give an update on where we are with the mobile home ordinance update?
So after discussion with the city attorney and the city manager, we will be taking it for direction from city council in November.
Thank you.
That
Commissioner
pertains to
Barnett?
what I was going to ask. I mean, we don't have a role in a mobile home ordinance. Are the speakers who came tonight aware of the fact that they seem to be under the impression that we have a role?
So I just sent them the email today to that group at the end of the day that it was going to city council. I'm sure that question will come up, but you're correct. We looked further into the code, and the section of the code in regards to tenant, the rent control is a city council purview, and tenant protections, depending on the jurisdiction, could be within planning commission, but that's the direction that we need to get from city council about tenant protections.
Well, I was on the council in 2004 when the current ordinance was passed, and I remember the work that went into it, which also included the city defending itself in a lawsuit and winning. That was back in the day where we won our lawsuits. Anyway, but I distinctly recall it being within the council purview. It was never a planning commission discussion.
I do think that came up originally because of the housing element, because it's defined in the housing element. Any other questions? Let me see, where are we? Okay. Item 7 then is commissioner reports and comments. So I know we just had some comments from commissioners. I don't know that there are any reports. The Housing Trust Fund ad hoc has not met yet, is that the understanding?
No, it has not,
Okay.
and I will. I'm going to address that this week.
Okay, well, then the last item is item 8, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? All right. Thank you, everybody.